Hi everyone, welcome along to lecture 16 of the AlphaChem side of our Advanced Manufacturing Technology module. And today we're going to work on a few things. We'll begin by working on some splines and some complex logos. We're going to import some files from the likes of AutoCAD and see how we can engrave them. And we'll also continue on our exploration of engraving by engraving some text. And time permitting, we might actually run through the video of us processing the project from last week, this phone stand on the CNC itself. Now, if we get time for that, we'll do it. If not, we'll kick it to next week. Just before we begin, I just found this graphic during the week I thought it might be nice to show you. It might help explain the differences between safe rapid level, rapid down to, and indeed the work surface and in the depth of cut. So what you can see here is the workpiece has been clamped. This component here, this rectangle where the mouse is now, represents the piece of material being processed. And beneath that is the jig or whatever mechanism you have to hold it in place. And this represents the cutter. And the safe rapid is the vertical height below which the tool will not go until it's in a position ready to actually cut. So the safe rapid level, I usually set it to be 40 mil above the workpiece. That means that that 40 mil line is safe. Anywhere above that, the tool will not bump into anything that could cause it to break or damage the workpiece. The rapid down to then is always a couple of millimeters above the work surface. I just tend to set that to 5 mil. So once the cutter moves over into position, it'll also rapid down or move down quickly as far as this rapid down to level. And from this height downwards, it'll slowly move towards and into the workpiece. So moving over to AlphaChem, I want to begin today by looking at splines. Now I know we covered this briefly last week, but it's important for the exercises to follow that we cover it and have a good understanding of it again. So let's go to Geometry, Rectangle, and let's just draw, let's say, an A3 sheet of material. So I'm going to start with a rectangle tool. 0 tab 0 will be the first point, and the other point will be 297, or rather, let's make it A3, 420 tab 297, enter. So there we have an A3 sized sheet of material. And I want to just put a groove across that with, let's say, a 10 mil cutter, and I want that to be in the shape of a spline. And in the Geometry tab, we do have a Splines command, but you can see a lot of the commands are grayed out. All I've got is create spline. And as it happens, that's not any good to me. What I must do to create the spline is start off with a line, and don't think too hard about where the lines are. Think more carefully about where the points are. And I'm going to roughly mock out the shape of a spline. This is the direction I want that spline line to follow. I don't want it to be very rigid and follow lines like that. So we can convert this series of lines into a spline. So you must draw that piece of geometry first. Then go to Splines. You'll notice that the commands are still closed because I don't have any spline in the graphics window. But I can create a spline now. So go to Create Spline. Existing geometry, you can leave the tolerance as is. That's just going to tell you how closely it's going to fit the existing points there. And I do want to delete the original. I don't want a spline on top of those zigzag lines. They're just there for construction. So delete original, press OK, then click this piece of geometry. Now they're all joined together, which is handy. If they happen not to be joined together, simply use the Edit Join command to do that. So click that line, press Finish, and now you've got a spline. And it's not a mistake that it goes that reddy brown color. That shows us that it is a spline. If I was to go to 3D and set materials and set that block to be, let's say, -20. And let's go to View ISO so I can see it. We've already covered the fact that you're not going to be able to send a toolpath along that, or a cutter rather. Even if I go to Machine, Select Tool, and let's select the flat 10 mil cutter. If I go to Rough or Finish, you'll see that it's grayed out, pocketing is grayed out, and even the more complicated 3D machining and all those other processing commands are also grayed out because there is nothing machinable here. Now, had I not turned that rectangle into a solid, if that green rectangle was still available, a lot of those commands would be visible. So what we need to do is convert that spline into a series of curves and straight lines. The software can't handle a spline. It can only handle curves of varying radii. So to do that, let's go back to Geometry, back to Splines, and now because we have a spline, all these commands are no longer grayed out. And the one I'm after is this, Convert Spline to Lines and Arcs. And the tolerance, again, you can leave a 0.1. That's just going to determine how accurately all the curves that are about to be placed on top of this spline will actually remain faithful or deviate from it. So you can leave both those commands as they are. I do want to delete the original. I want to get rid of this red spline and replace it with the green lines and arcs. I do want to join them, and everything else should be okay. So if I press OK, select that spline, finish. Now I have this green geometry, or rather it's a series of curves that are joined together as a geometry. And now if I go to Machine, Rough or Finish, I can go to Levels and Cuts. We'll go to 40, 5, 0, and -10. And very quickly just put on any random toolpath for now, and if I run the simulation you can see that's how we've overcome the problem of machining a spline. So let's close that simulation and go to View, XY, and I want to now talk about adding some text before we can actually engrave it. So let's go to Geometry, Text, and you'll notice beside text is a grayed out Edit Text tool. It's grayed out because there's no text available to edit. And unlike other programs you're used to, such as I suppose AutoCAD, Inventor, SolidWorks, in those softwares you'd usually double click a text box to edit it. Double clicking a text box in AlphaCam won't work. You have to use the Edit Text tool. So it's a subtle difference there. So if you hit text, you can see that it gives you a load of different options for the text, and there's lots of different fonts you can use, and pay attention to the type of font because some fonts have a double line, some have a single line. It depends on the shape of the actual engraved text you want. I'll leave it at this default stencil for now. You can have left to right or right to left depending on whether you're going to mirror or you're actually engraving the front or back of something. Here is where you can add the bold or the italics to your drawing. I'm going to leave those off for now, and we'll come back to these types in a few moments. For now I'm going to leave it at text, and for now I'm going to leave it positioned by a point. I will come back to baselines or arcs in a few minutes, and you can justify it left, right or center, and this is where you change the height of it. Height of uppercase characters 8 mil. We'll edit some of those in a minute. Let's just put on the default one for now. So if I press OK, then if I click somewhere to position the text, you can either position it with a coordinate or simply click. It's now allowing me to type in the text. So this is text in AlphaCam. And whenever you're happy, just press OK, and now you have the text there. So I'm going to tap Escape to close the command. You'll notice it comes in yellow. In the same way that geometry comes in green, the toolpath has this blue color, a construction line has this purple color, text has its own unique layer or its own unique color, which in this case is yellow. So we get on and do some more editing with that. I'm just going to try to double click this and you'll see nothing will happen. I'm trying my best to double click the text there. If you want to edit that text, you go to Edit, you go to Geometry, and you go to Edit Text, which is now visible. So click Edit Text, then click the text box, and it opens up again. So for instance, I can go Text in AlphaCam, I can select it, I can make it bold, I could change the font, and whenever you're happy, just press OK, and it changes it. It's a subtle difference there, it made it bold. Let's go back into text. This time I'll leave everything the same, but I'll change the height of uppercase characters to 15. Press OK, position the text, 15mm text. And if you press Escape or press OK, it'll close the command. So that's an important thing. That's how you change the size of the text. Let's change the font this time. Edit Text, select this bottom piece of text, and the font this time is just going to be something at random. Let's just pick this one. Press OK, and there's the text changed. Again, if you want to select it and you want to make it bold and italic, press OK. That's how you change it. We'll just do another little bit before we actually get in and try and engrave or machine those. So if you go to text again, this time I'm going to click Dimension and press OK. I'll just type in dimension. You'll notice the text comes in white. I'll do something very similar this time, but I will select Geometry and press OK, and this time I'll type in Geometry. Press Escape. Geometry is green. We've already learned that text is yellow, and we haven't talked about this yet, but you can use AlphaCam to make work on drawings, in which case you might want to apply dimensions to the drawings. Dimensions are white. So seeing as I have a few pieces of text, let's try and machine them. I'll just move to a 3D or rather a view and an ISO view, just so I can see it more clearly. Go to Machine, select Tool, and I'm not going to engrave them with a flat 10mm cutter. I'll show you why. If I double click that, as I move along those lines, the flat 10mm cutter will just annihilate everything in its path. So I'm actually going to select an engraver. And we've unloaded here called a User Engraver 30 degree. And you can see you can use that to precisely carve out all of the individual lines that make up the text. So I'll press Enter on that to confirm it. And I'm going to go Rough or Finish. General, everything is okay there. Level and cuts, say if rapid level can be 40, rapid down to can be 5, and the final depth is just going to be small. Let's even say -1mm, and one cut is fine. I don't need to go down in multiple passes. So press OK, and you can see as I try to click this yellow text, it will not allow me to apply a toolpath to it. In the same way that you can't apply a toolpath to a spline, you can't apply a toolpath to a construction line, you can't apply a toolpath to this yellow text. You can't apply it to this white dimensions, but you can apply it to this green geometry. So if I draw a box around all of that geometry and press Finish, and I'll just go over to my operations and I'll turn off that first operation, which was the spline. And if I run the simulation now, let's go to View, Solid Simulation, and Play. It's going to come in, I'll speed it up, and it's going to engrave that text for me. Speed it up again. There we have it. So press stop on that. So we've learned a couple of things there. First of all, text has its own unique yellow color. We've learned how to edit the text, and also it's very important that the text becomes geometry if you want to be able to process it. So what we did was we went to geometry, we went to text, and if you're clever, and if you remember ahead of time that you wanted to be geometry, and click geometry, you can type text straight in as geometry. Now there's a disadvantage with that. The disadvantage is if I now go to edit text, I can't actually edit this type text that I've written, because that is no longer font, it's no longer text, it's essentially traced green lines over where the text would have been. So if you do go to text and you do go to geometry straight away, you need to be very careful that your font and the size and the spelling is correct. So I do recommend, if you're not 100% sure, leave it as this yellow text, and when you type it in, you can always get back in and edit it and make changes to it. And when it comes time to machine it, then you simply go to Edit, Change, from Text to Geometry, and select that text and press Finish, and that converts it to machinable geometry. But the problem is, as soon as you apply that change, there's no going back. You can't convert it then from that geometry back to text. So be very careful that you get the text exactly as you want it, and then and only then convert it to geometry for machining. So if you want text at an angle or along a curve, let's start with an angle. I'm going to go to geometry, I'm going to turn off construction. You don't have to. Go to line and draw a line at an angle like that. Now I'm going to go to text, but this time I'm going to position text not from a point but with a base line or an arc, a line in this case. I'll just change that back to 10mm. And I'm going to press OK, select the line, and text on line escape. So the text will follow that line. And if I press Ctrl Z to undo that, I'll try something different. Text. This time I'm going to center the text, and I'm going to maybe change character width scale factor. Let's press 2. Press OK, and text on line. And you see two things have happened. First of all, it's centered, and secondly, because I've changed the character width, the letters, the individual letters are actually widened out, which typically looks better on some shop signs or some engravings, or if you have a certain width to fill, you can always expand out the text. And that's totally machinable. The only problem with that is the line is also machinable, so it might be a better idea to actually use a construction line, which I will do now. So construction, let's use this 3-point arc. So I've got an arc there. Tap escape. Go to text. I'm happy enough with the font, yeah, and I'm going to put it in as text this time. I want to use a base line or an arc. I want it to be centered. I don't want the width to be double, so I'll put that back to 1. and I'll just press OK. The distance between characters specifies how tightly packed the characters are beside each other, and the width of space character is just the spacing between the words as well. So if you press OK, select that line, now you can type in text on a curve and press escape. So you can machine that very simply. Once you're happy with it, if you don't have any typos or anything, go to edit, go to change from text to geometry, select that text, finish, and now you can go to machine, rough or finish. All the settings should be okay from previous, so I'm going to go OK. And you can machine individual letters. So if I just hit the T or the E or the X, it'll individually machine those. So I'm going to draw a selection window around all of those, selection window around that, and a selection window around that, and just press finish. Go to view, ISO, run the simulation very fast. It should engrave all of that for us. And I'll press stop on the simulation. I'll move back to my operations layer, and let's say I wanted that to be a little bit deeper, which I don't. Typically you don't want to go down too far with this engraving. I'm going to right click this, edit, and go to levels and cuts. I'm going to send it down to -3, which I think is too much. Press OK, press OK, and now run the simulation. You see, in this case, it's a little bit too much. Well, it's not too bad, but it's starting, up here certainly it's too much. It's starting to get to the stage where the engraving of the letter T has actually gone down so deep, it's widened out this little V groove, and it's encroaching on the other letters. Now in real world terms, when I've done that physically previously before, if the width of the component didn't matter to you, you could just run it through the sander, and that would effectively reduce the depth of that after the fact. But you can always get back in here to the operation and edit it again. So edit, let's go to levels and cuts, put that back to -1. Oh sorry, that's the opposite. It's actually this one. Right click, edit, levels and cuts. I keep picking the wrong one, press 2. Levels and cuts, there it is, -3, put that back to -1, press OK, and now it's back to normal. And you can see here I've now moved over to an internet browser, and I've gone to a website called draftsperson.net. And I've no particular allegiance to this site, it's just one that works. There are plenty of sites out there where you can go to download DWG files, Inventor part files, SolidWorks part files, you name it. So this one allows you to go and download AutoCAD blocks, because I want to show you how to import something from AutoCAD that you could perhaps find online and machine it very quickly within AlphaCam. So if I browse down as far as more blocks, and then if I just go down and find something, it doesn't really matter. I'm going to pick helicopters, page 505. I'm going to wait until I find something I'm happy with, something complicated enough. Let's take this one. And if I right click this helicopter zip, I'm going to go save target as. I'll save it to my desktop and press save. Going back to AlphaCam, in fact going back to the desktop, you can see that helicopter has now downloaded, but it's in a zipped folder. So just to be careful, I'll double click that zipped folder and unzip it, or rather just drag and drop it back onto the desktop, just get it out of that folder. You can now delete that zipped folder. That zipped folder was just kind of a protective package, if you like. So I'll double click helicopter 1 just to prove that it works. I'll open it with AutoCAD, and there it is. Now you can see there's an awful lot of lines in there. I may not want to machine all of these. You can edit it here in AutoCAD if you wish, and just because it is available for download doesn't mean it's download or drawn that accurately. I can see a bit of messiness here, but it'll work for my example. So moving back to AlphaCam, I'm actually going to clear this. I don't need to save this, so I'm going to go to File, New. Do you want to save it? No. And it opens up a brand new, fresh AlphaCam file. View, XY, Geometry, Rectangle. Let's use an A3 sheet again. So I'm going to go to 0, tab 0, enter, and then 420, tab 297. That's the size of an A3 sheet. So to bring in an AutoCAD file, you simply go to Home and Input CAD, which is here. And if you press Input CAD, it's getting very good lately. Previously with the software, you didn't have too many softwares that AlphaCam could just input straight from. But you can see the ones we're familiar with here: SolidWorks, Inventor, and all sorts of other file formats like an STL or a step file that we'd be used to. So we happen to have a DWG, which is an AutoCAD file. So let's just import a DWG. All the settings are fine, so just press OK. I'm going to browse to my desktop where I downloaded a file called Helicopter1, and it just brings it in like that. Now I put the A3 sheet there first just to give me a sense of scale and perspective, and I can see that's not going to fit on the sheet, so I have two options. I can scale the sheet size up or the drawing down. Let's scale the drawing down. So go to Scale, and I'm going to start down here in the bottom right hand corner and draw a selection window, deliberately making sure it doesn't fully encompass the rectangle. Just make sure it covers the whole helicopter. Then press Finish. It's going to ask me for a base point, a point around which the whole geometry, the whole shape is going to shrink. It doesn't really matter. I'm just going to pick somewhere in the middle of the helicopter. And let's say I want to scale a factor in the X and Y of 0.5, 0.5. I want it to be half the size, or maybe even a quarter, 0.25. So scale factor X will be 0.25, enter. Scale factor Y, 0.25, enter. I'll just press Ctrl Z to undo that. I might try it just at a half size. So same thing again, hit Scale, select the helicopter and press Finish. And the base point is anywhere in the middle with a click. And then 0.5, enter, 0.5, enter. Yeah, that'll fit there. Let's now move it. So go to Edit and then go to Move. We'll select all the geometry that forms part of the helicopter and press Finish. Pick any point within it and then just drop it onto the sheet. No, I'm going to have to scale it down again, I'm afraid. Thought it might fit. What harm? Scale, select the helicopter, Finish, point in the middle. Let's go 0.8, enter, 0.8, enter. Control Z, we'll try, we'll get it this time. Scale, select all of that, press Finish, click anywhere in here, 0.75, enter, 0.75, enter. There we have it. So move, select it, Finish, and just drop it so that it fits on the sheet. Now it doesn't matter what you pick. If you go to that website, you can get all sorts of safety signs, you can get all sorts of logos, even maybe a client will have a company logo that they want engraved. Rather than having to draw it all out yourself, you can download the AutoCAD file and import the DWG straight into AlphaCam like this. So if I go to 3D, Set Materials, select the rectangle, 0 minus 20, that'll work. Let's look at it in isometric. And go to Machine, select Tool, and I want the little engraver again. So User Engraver 30 degrees, press Enter, and go Rough for Finish. Everything should be okay apart from levels and cuts. My safe rapid level will be 40. I might even put that down to 30. Rapid down to, I can even just put that down to 4. Final depth -1. Let's see how that works. So press OK. And this time, instead of just individually clicking or drawing a box around everything, I know that everything there that's green, I want to be machined. So select all and finish. And now if I go to View, Simulation, Play, it's going to come in and it's going to machine all that geometry for you. Now, like I said, I wouldn't be overly happy with some of the drawings because there's an awful lot of excess there, it seems. If it was a better drawing, or if you wanted, you could edit the drawing to tidy up some of those, but it will actually faithfully follow every bit of a green line, green geometry that was there imported from AutoCAD. So have a go at that. Don't necessarily just copy the file I've brought in. That mightn't even be the best example, but it just goes to show you that you can bring in files. So I'm back in a new AlphaCam file and I want to go to View, XY, and Geometry, Rectangle. Let's go 0, enter, 0, enter, and this time we put in an A4 sheet of paper. So this is 210 tab 297. So there's a portrait A4 sized sheet. In AlphaCam here, or AutoCAD rather, I've got a logo. It's the GMIT logo. I've also uploaded that to Learn Online. So below the link that you access this lecture with, you'll find a DWG file of this logo that was drawn in AutoCAD. And it's drawn pretty accurately to represent the logo itself. But the problem is, a lot of these shapes to make up the actual graphic of the logo were drawn with splines, and all of this has been drawn with text. So if I want to machine this logo, I have a small bit of modification to do to it before I can actually machine it. So going back to AlphaCam, I'm going to go and bring in that logo now. So Home, Input CAD, it's a DWG, which is AutoCAD, so press OK. On my desktop, I've got the folder called GMIT logo. You'll be able to download it from Learn Online. And when I bring it in, it appears over here, way off over to the right. So the first thing I'll do is I'll just move it into position. So edit, move, let's select it, press finish, click a point in it, and then move it back onto the sheet. And the reason it appeared over there, because back in AutoCAD, it depends where it was drawn with respect to the origin. So you can see this represents 0, 0 in AutoCAD, and the logo was drawn a certain distance to the right and a certain distance above that origin. So when I brought it into AlphaCam, that would sync up. So the same distance over to the right and the same distance up, that's where the logo is going to come in. So it can be confusing when you bring in something from AutoCAD, it mightn't appear. So it's well worth just zooming right the way out and see was it drawn somewhere else instead. I'm going to make that a small bit bigger first of all. So let's go to Edit, Scale, select everything within the logo, press Finish, click anywhere in the middle, and let's make it a little bit bigger, 1.25, enter, and then also the same value in the Y, 1.25, enter. If I didn't give it the same value in the X and the Y, the logo would stretch either upwards or laterally. It wouldn't maintain its aspect ratio. If I try to machine this, you can tell by the green lines, the only thing that will machine will be those couple of green lines there. And just to kind of show you that, I'll go to 3D, set materials. Let's set the block to be -20. And if I go to machine, select tool, user engraver, nothing new here. Let's go to a 3D view so I can see it. That's going to engrave everything. So press enter. And if I go to machine, rougher finish, in levels and cuts, I want it to be 30 for a safe rapid, 4 for rapid down to material top is 0, final depth -1. Press OK. Press all and finish, and there's no prizes for guessing what will happen. It'll just machine those few bits of geometries that were green. So you've got two things to fix first of all. Those red things showed me that they were drawn with splines, and there's nothing wrong with drawing them as splines, but when you want to machine them, they can't be splines. So let's go to Geometry, Splines, Convert Splines to Lines or Arcs. And I want the tolerance to remain as is, 0.1. There's no reason to get that any more accurate. I do want to delete the original. I do want to join the resulting arcs. That means that when it makes all of these individual shapes with lots of different arcs, I want them to be joined. So just press OK, and I'll press all and finish. What that's done now is stitched all of those, or converted all those splines to lines and arcs and stitched them all together. Just go back to operations and delete that operation. I don't want that anymore. Let's press escape. Right click and delete that operation. That will now machine all the logo, but it won't machine the text. So because this is still yellow, because it was created as a text box within AutoCAD, the text box is still there. So I can still edit text and still get in here and actually change the font or change the text if I'm not happy with it. But when you're happy with it, I'm going to go to Edit, Change, from Text to Geometry and press OK. And rather than individually picking it all, I'll just go all and finish. So now I should be able to go to Machine, Rougher Finish. Let's just check the levels and cuts. So safe rapid level 30, rapid down to 4, and the important one, final depth -1, that'll work. Press OK on all of that. Select all to select everything that's geometry. Press Finish, and then we should be set. So I'll just actually press undo on that for a second and go Control G. See, it's very hard to see if there's any duplicates of lines there. So it's probably a good idea before I do that to go Edit, Join, All, Finish. Nothing really changed. And just in case there's a common line, it shouldn't really matter in this case. Let's go to Geometry, Special Functions, Common Line Removal, All, and Finish. Join resulting geometries, yes. And as it happens, it looks like there's a couple of common lines there. Well, it's not responding now, but it'll work in a second. But it looks like there's a couple of common lines. The reason I'm doing this is because I didn't draw this in AutoCAD. And the same applies to something you've downloaded from the internet. If you're not sure that there aren't common lines there, it's no harm just to run the common line removal tool anyway. So there we have it. Now, it took a second to actually work. So now if I go to Machine, Rougher Finish, everything should be the same. Press OK. All and finish. Control G will turn off my ghost tools, and if I run the simulation, it should machine it all out for us. And there we have it. Okay, so there's a lot of machining in it there. In fact, that seems a little bit too deep for this bottom text. So you could actually go back and just edit it and make that go down 0.5 mil. So what you do for that is go back to that, right click, I'll delete the operation and I'll turn off the simulation, press stop, and I'll go to machine, rough or finish, and I'll only select those top components for the 1 mil pass, and then I'll do another pass. Let's go to rough or finish, and I'm going to go to this, I didn't click it, rough or finish, going to go to levels and cuts, and let's just say that's going to go down minus 0.5 only, and this bottom row text is going to go down 0.5 mil, and press finish, and there we have it. And just to finish off today, I'd like you to try one of these before you actually watch on. Just try drawing a chopping board and try to apply the machining necessary to create it, and also add the GMIT logo or a logo or a DWG file of your choice to the surface and have it engraved. So to draw it, I'm going to go to File, New, Save Changes, No. I'm going to go to View and XY. And geometry, I want to start off with a construction to map out the approximate shape of the chopping board. So let's go to rectangle and 0 tab 0 enter and 297 tab 210. Let's make it approximately A4 sized. That's just going to be the frame of it, but I want curved edges. So turn off construction and let's go to arc, and I want this second option, which is 2 points plus the radius. So I'm going to pick up the corners with the snap tool. So turn on the snap tool. Left corner, right corner, and the radius is going to be 1200, and it's gone the wrong way, it's gone down the way. So instead of starting and clicking the left then the right, I'll just press undo. This time I'm going to pick the right then the left, so right and left, 1200, OK. So I'm going to do the same for all 4 sides, use 1200, and like I said, if you happen to get the curve going in the way, just click the points in the opposite order. I'm now going to put on a fillet maybe at the corner, so go to edit and go to fillet. Let's try 40 mil, pick 2 elements, pick that green line and do all 4 corners. And now's a good time to join these together, so go to edit, go to join all and finish. And I want a little groove on the inside for the little kind of drip, if I suppose you call it. So go to offset. I want to offset by a distance of, let's try 20. Pick that green geometry on the outside and click inside. And you can see I've made a little mistake there, so I'll press Ctrl Z. The mistake I made was I clicked line or arc. So it only brought that individual arc in, and I did not tick offset as geometry. So I wanted to offset as geometry. So click offset as geometry, but also click geometry. That means it's going to take the whole loop and bring it in one go. So press OK, click the green geometry, then click inside it, and that's more like it. So go to 3D, set materials. I can pick this outer blank and set that to be minus 20. Now that would simulate view ISO. That would simulate a situation where I already had processed those blanks. I didn't actually have to run the cutter around the outside. But because I've got this green groove on the inside, I can go to machine, select tool, and I'm going to get this ball end 10 mil cutter. It's got this rounded end to it, and I'm going to apply that along this center groove. So rough or finish, levels and cuts, I want that to go down minus 4. One pass is fine, so press OK, apply to that green path in the center, press finish, and there you have it. While I'm at it, I'm going to bring in that logo again. So I'm going to go to Home, Input CAD, find the GMIT logo. You can see because of the same reason we discussed earlier, it came in way over to the right hand side. So go to Edit and Move, select all the logo, press Finish, click anywhere to pick it up, and I'm not too fussed about where I put it. I'm going to put it there, say. And a couple of bits and pieces we need to do to fix this. I need to go to Edit, change from text to geometry, all, and finish. So all the text should now be changed to geometry. And geometry, splines, I want to get rid of splines and convert them to lines and arcs. So press OK, select all the splines, select finish, and now let's just put on some engraving there. Machine, select tool, the engraver, rough or finish, let's just put it down to minus 0.7. Press OK. And I'm going to put it onto all of those geometries and finish. So with any luck now, if we turn on the simulation, we should have what we're after. Now I did that too fast, so I'll stop that. And we'll start again. Solid simulation and press play. And you can see that ball end cutter puts that little groove along the inside like that. Now there's lots more you can do with that. You could have bull-nosed the edge there. You could have started off an entire square and just cut the edge using a 10mm cutter. But this is just a good culmination to show everything we've learned today. So I'm not going to ask you to upload any files to Learn Online this week, and I'll talk to you next week when we continue on with advanced machining and the application of even more machining commands. Okay, so we'll talk to you then.